My name's Leslie Parker, and I'm a writer, part-time, and I've published 2 novels. I'm not a public speaker, so you're going to bear with me. I usually like to just type things, not say them. And I hear you're all writers because you're in here, and that means you're readers too, right? So that's the first thing to becoming a writer, is to read everything you can read. Because then you learn to judge what's good, what's bad, what you like, what you don't, and how you want to tell your story. Because you're not the first person to write, so you need to base it on everybody else who's written before. So, and the way I started writing was when I was 13, I had a girlfriend who loved to write. And so we used to make up stories about the boys we had crushes on, and rock stars, and movie stars, all that kind of thing. And we write stories with all this drama and everything. But as I got older, then I just started making up my own characters and started writing about me. And then I found that's kind of a challenge, trying to make a formal plot and make a character realistic instead of caricature, instead of just a stereotype. So, and anyway, and the first time I was published was in high school. I was published in my writer's annual that they did at the end of the year, and they left my name off my story. And the second time I was published was in a competition online where John Updike, who's a famous writer, started a story, and you had to add a paragraph. And if they chose your paragraph to be the next one, you got $1,000. And I won a paragraph in that one. So that was kind of fun. And it was a challenge because you had to follow what the story other people had written. And every day I write a paragraph and it won mine. And finally they did a twist in the story I didn't like, so I undid it mine and then picked it. I think somebody didn't want to, whoever was reading the paragraphs didn't like it either. So, but I have self-published 2 novels on Amazon, they're on Kindle, and I use a company called Create Space to do it. And they'll design the book for you, they do all the work for you, pay you to do it, but they do it all for you. And they design your covers, but pretty much I've designed my covers, so those are my 2 books. And this is a photograph from a chair in my living room, as the guy in the book does woodworking. And this is and then this is I did a collage and photographed it, put through Photoshop a couple times, and made that cover. So, and I like to write, so I've done it all my life. I have millions of stories. I can come up with a story from anything. But I decided I wanted to just write it, share them with everybody, which is kind of scary to get, give your stories to other people and let them criticize them, because you write something, you really like it. But criticism's good because it teaches you how other people perceive your writing. And even if they're wrong about something, maybe you did not convey your intent well enough, so that you need to listen to it, and then you take it with a grain of salt and go forward. Don't get it, don't let it upset you. But you're writing for readers, and if a reader doesn't understand or like it, then you need to maybe think about how you've portrayed your character or how you formed your story and go forward. But what's the first thing you need when you write a story? An idea. Where do you get ideas from? Well, inspiration. You get them everywhere. Look around you, everything. You can look outside, you can figure out a story about something in those woods over there. You can listen to what people say. Somebody might say something mean or nice or funny or interesting, and it makes you think, oh, I could have a character that says that to somebody, and this happens and that happens. And you're not really writing about the person that said it, but that phrase gave you an idea. And then when you're young and you're just starting, and you could do fan fiction, which a lot of, I think, is more popular right now. When there's a popular book, you write based on those characters. And then, my notes. And okay, so that first best thing to do is to write what you know. Write about where you're from, what you're doing, places you know, because you can't write a forensics if you don't know forensic medicine. You can't go write a crime procedural, like CSI, if you don't know that stuff. So you're not going to fool the reader, and they're not going to like the book. So you start with what you know, and then you still need to do research. And I'm going to say something bad. Great place for research to jump off for writing books is Wikipedia, because it doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. I mean, you're not going to plagiarize it, you're not going to copy it, you're just getting ideas about maybe a country or something you need to look up, a medical procedure or kind of saw or something. So you can look there, and that gives you links to other places. So that's great. My next book's going to be about Kenya, and I've never been to Kenya, so I've just undone what I said, right, about what you know. But I found that on Google Video, there's all kinds of people in Kenya that ride around Nairobi just filming the streets and talking about what they see and riding on the highways, and so I can look at that and understand what the city of Nairobi looks like, there's a zebra in the field right there in the city, so you get those little things and you can work them into your stories. So you don't have to be an expert when you write about something. You just have to know a little bit more than your reader, and you have to use the right keywords that make it seem like you know more. Also, you can use magazines. I mean, magazines are great because there are magazines for every kind of hobby, every kind of interest. And Barnes & Noble also has reference books. You can actually go in there and pull books off the shelf and look at them. And when I did the book about the woodworking, I don't do woodworking. But my father did, so I was used to what he did. He made furniture and refinished things. So I used that, and then I just looked through books and looked at pictures of people doing things and read a little brief. It's not like you have to study, you just get an idea how you can express small parts so that your reader learns something new, but you're not an expert on it. Then the other thing, other than write what you know, is write what you don't know. You can use sci-fi, make it all up. Nobody knows it. So that can be really easy sometimes, but that can be really hard if you make up something so complicated that your readers don't have a reference point. Then it makes it too cumbersome to try to write. And are you familiar with Lord of the Rings? Yeah. The books or the movies? Well, you notice he was very creative. He made all those characters, all those different societies, but the landscape was really familiar. It was earth, and it was mountains, and the fortresses looked like medieval castles, and so he had a basis for what he knew and what his readers knew, and then he developed on that. So, another great thing about writing novels is they're not essays, so you can break rules. I'm being bad, but you, like I found, and I learned this from reading other authors too, that say somebody's saying something like, get out of here. Well, that's what a period is, get out of here. Like your mother saying, get out of here, or something. Then it's on fire, get out of here, with an exclamation point. If you're really mad, you would do get out of here, and you put a period after each word and capitalize it. And it would convey to your reader the emotion of what's happening in each sentence. So that's like how you can use punctuation and capitalization, like flaming in an email or something, to get across that without having to say, Mary said that softly, Mary said that excitedly, Mary said that screaming. You don't have to describe it if you can get it out of the words. Another thing is if you're writing a paragraph about something, like Mary didn't know Adam well, and I'm trying to think of a good example. Anyway, you could have it where the last sentence, not an example right now, you could have it where the last sentence would be something like, but he thought he knew. And which, if you wanted that to carry more weight, you could make that a paragraph on its own, where it's, but he thought he knew, where it puts it all by itself and gives it a little more weight, like a foreshadowing, like, something's going to happen. Yeah, that's exactly it. my sound effects person. So that's why I said in the beginning, read a lot, because when you read other writers and they have a really cool way of making a sentence, you read a sentence and say, wow, that's just a great sentence. Then you understand how maybe you can use, not copy their sentence, but use style devices that they use to help build your stories too. And I had one little example. Glasses. Let's see. Okay, well, I was going to talk about the process of writing. Some people will sit down, figure out their whole plot, write everything out on little note cards, and have it totally organized where they know exactly what's going to happen all the way through. Some people sit down at a typewriter and start at page 1 and write all the way to the end. They may not know, but they go straight through. I sort of have an idea about what I want to write, and I may know from A to Z, I may know A, F, and P. I don't know the rest of the story, but I know that I want these things to happen. So I go ahead and write those. Then I think, well, how do I get here? Well, I need this, this, and this to happen. So I may put a few sentences in, a snippet of dialogue. And I sort of write in layers until I get the whole story. And then I rewrite. So you start over, and you go through it, you smooth it out, clean it up, build on your, build the color into what you've written, because you can just kind of sketch it out to begin with. Then you build your color and your layers, and then you cut because you've written too much stuff that people don't really know about. So I have an example of what I mean by building color. Okay, you can have a sentence like, I entered a restaurant, it smelled really good, I ordered my food. But is that something you want to read in a book? Did it tell you anything? Did it paint a picture for you? Did it use the 5 senses? Mm-mm. So here's an example of what you could do with that sentence. The glass door reflected the red and gold storefronts of Chinatown behind me as I entered the small takeout restaurant my brother had recommended. I was immediately drenched in the aroma of stir-fry and wrapped in whiffs of savory sauces. My mouth began to water in the open kitchen, 3 cooks stood over steaming woks, their spatulas clanging against the sizzling pans, while a young woman waited at the counter to take my order. So that paints the restaurant. You can smell it, you can hear it, and so your reader's now in the place that you're describing. And you didn't have to say, you didn't really describe it, you described it by sort of talk about what you're doing instead of really sitting down and saying, there were 3 men sitting in the, you don't do it right, you just sort of add it to your action as you're moving forward. And my husband read the first book I wrote, the first novel I completed. And he said, that's great, rewrite it. And that was like, but I did rewrite it. But the best thing you can do is edit, edit, edit. And the hardest thing to do is edit what you've written. Because you know what you've written, you know what you meant, and it's really hard to read it any other way. And I don't know if you've ever seen those puzzles that they have where they have all the letters in the words scrambled up, but you can still read the sentences because all the letters are scrambled up. And it's how your brain works. You can have a word that's misspelled or turned around. As long as you have all the consonants there, you don't even need the vowels, and you can pretty much figure out what's being written. So when you're reading, it's very easy not to see a spelling error or even a grammatical error or punctuation error. So I think for me, the best way is I sit down and I read the paragraph out loud to myself. Because if I stumble reading it out loud, then I know I've made a mistake somewhere in either punctuation or I've made it too cumbersome where it doesn't flow right. And reading out loud, I'll find my errors. Another thing is that you can, and you can do this even if it doesn't cost anything, you can download the Kindle Reader to your laptop. You may need your parents to set up an Amazon account, but you can download the reader and you can send Word documents to it because it will have an email address associated with it. It's free at free.kindle.com. So you're not editing, you're only reading. And so when you read it in that format, sometimes things jump out at you that when you're in the middle of a laptop and you're like, oh, back up. You can make mistakes when you're fixing things. So you end up putting more mistakes in that you thought you corrected. So. And then you can get other people to proof if you want to. But a lot of people will proof, but they won't edit, like telling you, well, this sentence is too long, or this sentence isn't good, or you use the wrong words, So dictionary thesaurus, they're always good to have. I don't use Word or anything like that. It has this thesaurus built into it. And I think that's everything I had. Do you have questions?
What kind of questions would you guys like to ask? Anything you want to know, because tomorrow you're going to publish for the first time. Anything? I have.
Yes.
Yeah, we hold that.
Okay.
What's your name?
Leslie Clark. I write under LA Clark.
I said you said thought also. You said you were.
Yes.
Oh, what do I do the other half? Well, I do full-time. I work for a company in Kinston, North Carolina. That's I work for a company that manages the IT applications for a large chain of nursing homes. And I manage the financial software and the timekeeping software, which are the punch clocks that everybody punches in. So, and I write programs and do a little bit of web development, not anything cool, it's all business. But I'm a programmer analyst.
Has one of your books ever been in a store other than like the Kindle store?
It's in UBE.
Okay. So it's in Greenville. Okay.
The first one, it is kind of complicated. It's the way Create Space is. You get royalties off whatever, but the pricing is so outrageous that if you do the channels where books can be ordered by other stores, it's so expensive to buy your book. And so I have the books just so I can have a book and carry it around, look, and I make up the little cards so I can give people. But really, I'm looking to get Kindle sales. So.
Right. How long have you been publishing books?
4 years.
Okay.
I did one, well, 2 years. I did one 2 years ago, and I just did one this June. So.
How hard do you think it is to publish a book?
It just costs money if you self-publish. Of course, you want it to, the work on the book itself is, time-consuming, but I haven't really tried to get a publisher, external publisher. I just haven't had time to really try to figure out how to do that. Like, maybe when I'm tired. I can do that.
Okay. What does it take to be a good author, in your opinion?
In my opinion, paying attention to what's around you when you observe things, so that you can actually give a realistic description of things, and try to portray your characters realistically, as if they're real people. Even if they're the bad guy, they've got to have something nice about them. I mean, everybody has children they like, or a pet, or something. I mean, So you try to make them kind of well-rounded, I think. And try not to overwrite. I like to write a lot of stuff. I like to, once I have characters on, I tell you their whole life story from the moment they're born, everything they do. You kind of have to come back home.
Okay, let's see. What is your favorite genre of books?
I like everything. I read a little bit of everything. But I write kind of love stories, so I guess I'd have to say romance, but it's not so much that. I like good stories that I learn something from and that entertain me.
Okay. And then how many books have you written, published and not published?
I probably have 30 or 40 half stories, partially written stories. And I have maybe 3, 4 that are almost complete but have not been published.
How long did it take you to self-publish a book?
Well, to self-publish, you just pay them, and it takes us about 6 weeks. I mean,
Right.
once you upload the files, they do
Mhm.
it. So it's all about the money.
Right. Right.
How long do you think it would like take to make a full story, like maybe 200 or 300?
Well, I brought one of my books with me, and that one's 560 pages. I started writing it in 1999, and I didn't write it full time. It was here and there. I got stuck in a part of it and put it aside and actually wrote another couple other books. So it takes a long time, and I can't even tell you how long it takes to write it, because I write, if I can't think of if I'm stuck on one story, I go to another story, because I think you need to write every day. Even if it's bad, even if you're not inspired, it's practice, it's work, and it keeps you focused. So
How much does it cost? It's a self-publish.
on Create Space, it depends, because they will do everything for you, from editing it and doing a full professional edit to just formatting it. So it's about for them to format the cover and the book, which means they get all the they get all the headings to the chapters looking pretty and starting on the right side, and all the fonts nice. And that's about $200, $300, and then the cover's about another $100 or so, and then the Kindle version is another $70. Once they get the book done, then they can turn it into a Kindle.
And we've been doing everything ourselves. Like, we're creating just a basic cover, a basic. I think the only thing for our book we're paying for is the ISBN. But if you're looking to get to be at this point where you're publishing a full novel, that's when you're going to have to start paying more in order to market yourself.
Or you send out tons of query letters and get a book editor or a book agent, and they'll give you a publisher that you don't have to pay to do it, they'll pay you for the book. But again, that's because I do it part-time, I just do it for fun. All the women I work with like my books, so they all buy them, so I have a ready-made audience. So.
And when you do go through traditional publishing, we talked about how the author of Harry Potter went through 12 different companies before 12 of them denied her book.
Right, and it was a great book, and look how much money those people lost. But you have to, there's somebody who writes he's a writer, and he writes about writing, and he was saying that, every book editor, every publisher likes something different. They don't all have the same taste. So you can't write for them. You write for yourself. You write what you like. You write what you want to read.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're writing really what you want to read and what you like, other people probably will like it too. And so, and you'll find a publisher or an editor or an agent who likes it too. So it just takes time and patience and stamina.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess a thick skin because all the rejection letters you can get.
Do you have any other questions?
Mm-hmm. And 12's not really a lot of rejection letters. A lot of authors will get a lot more.
Right.
When they find something.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it. Can you say thank her for giving her your time?